Hello and welcome back to Where Are All My Friends? This week is a return guest, and that return guest is Jon Herrera. If you aren't familiar with his first episode, to say it briefly, he grew a ton of clubs in the Philippines. He booked every massive artist you can think of, every DJ. He's worked and helped grow all these massive brands in fashion, brought them over to the Philippines, but that's not what this episode was about. This episode is really about the power of imagination. Something that I think is so missed in all of the mindset, goal setting, alignment is having fun with it and thinking as big and imagining your biggest goals. And I think people can kind of get lost in just like the grind, like the hustle and the work of it. He came on, he shared a lot of really cool pieces on that. So if you like this format, if you like stuff like this, let me know. Leave a comment, all that good stuff. Subscribe. I say it all the time. Enjoy the episode. This was really fun. Where are all my friends? We're back, and I brought a friend back, and I'm excited. This is Jon Herrera, round 2, and I wanted to specifically talk to you again because the first episode we did, you're a little bit outside of music. Well, actually, no, you're not outside of music. I thought you might be because you worked with like Illest and Fatlace and a lot of like brands, but really your roots are music. You're still doing a ton in music. But I guess what I meant to say is the episode took a turn in the direction of mindset. And I think that that was a really cool conversation that we had. And I think it's a little bit bigger than a specific industry. And I was very surprised and very happy with how much that resonated with my listeners. So shout out to the listeners that are trying to personally improve yourselves. And thank you, Jon, for sharing that.
Yo, man. I think... people, especially during COVID, people are looking to try to be better, be more and try to figure out themselves, because when you're sitting alone, you're only listening to your own thoughts. And, you go to these podcasts and you want to learn something. And definitely I can, hopefully I can help you with, what you guys want to learn. And yeah, man, let's, kick it off.
Yeah, and I guess the little mini backstory, if you didn't listen to the first episode, go back and listen because you'll understand, and it was great. But just to quickly gas you up, Jon has brought every crazy artist. If you can think of a DJ, he's probably brought them to the Philippines and had them play massively large shows. You scaled an incredible business on that whole club, promoter, DJ, all of that space when it was the most poppin'. You were the guy behind it in the Philippines. You have worked with Illest and Fatlace on a brand level and so much more. You do a ton of brands in the Philippines. You bring brands from the US to the Philippines. You help sort their, their retail out there. You just do it all. Yeah. So Jon's done a lot. And he's also worked with a close friend of mine, Kevion, and there's a lot of really cool parallels, and you've done quite a lot. So you are very qualified to speak on this, and you have a lot of wisdom on this. So thank you for taking the time to come back on and talk some more.
Anytime. I think when you say that, it seems a lot, but it's not a lot, but, hopefully I can help the listener, achieve their dreams. And in this episode, I want them to, how to achieve their dreams faster, easier, and help them kind of hack success and become the best person they can be.
Yeah. And where I want to pick up is on the last episode, you started talking about something. And when I listened back, we still went in a great direction, but there was something that struck me where I was like, no, wait, we need to talk about this a lot more, because I think it's so important. And I think that it's a piece that's easily overlooked when you get into that, set your goals, entrepreneurial mindset, work hard kind of thing. I think there's this one piece that's actually overlooked quite a lot, and it's the most fun and it's the coolest. And I honestly want to hear more about it myself, but that's how you said, using your imagination and having fun and dreaming. So if you could pick up right there and just talk to me about that, I would love that.
Well, there's a quote, Albert Einstein says that imagination is more important than, education. So I'll tell you the story why I feel imagination is the most important thing, because you don't really learn it from reading a book. You learn it from an experience. So when I was younger, I had a habit of, being very curious, but back then I didn't have a notebook or pen. So what I used to do is when I wanted to write something, I would literally write things in the air, the things I want, a list. I'd do invisible lists like in the air. And I used to do that like nonstop in the morning when I'm eating breakfast, going to sleep. And so happened that everything I wrote on my invisible list while I was doing this imagination process or just drawing things, what I was doing is I was activating my imagination, good feelings. And you're a kid, you think about just, random things. But if you're doing that consistently, and this is where I started to have like a little connection with what was going on out there and popping up. When I realized when I was doing this for like a good 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, I'm like, man, I'm pretty consistent. Anything I write in my invisible list, started to show up. Whether if it was sneakers, a girl, or anything that showed up. So I started to have this kind of like playful trust with imagination, and I didn't know anything about law of attraction before, but I thought, when you're a kid, and they always say, be like a kid because a kid doesn't really take things seriously, and I think that is the best space to be. And with imagination, people don't give it credit because imagination actually does all the work for me in terms of the times I failed in the business or became successful in the business. So I love to connect on imagination and why it's so important, because when people talk about business, it's really about how to use your imagination and have fun with it, and the result would make money. And what people don't realize, it's like, you know, imagination can fix your life, or it can keep you in that state of hell or limbo or whatever problems you have. So it's a very powerful tool, and I think that would be the point of my story. Is I started to develop a trust and experience where I would kind of like a scientist test every day. If I wrote this every day, what would happen? What would I do this? Like a trainer, if I did my abs, abs every day for 90 days, I would get fit. So, I was very, I would say, confident that my imagination had some connection to what was showing up. And that's what I realized at a young age. This is before you even read books. This is just kind of like you're playing with Ninja Turtles or you're watching Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, like you. Okay, so you were young, like coherent, like thinking
No,
about stuff, but
yeah, I
like
was thinking about stuff,
kid, kid.
yeah, like really, just like not even teen, it's like kid.
Yeah.
So I think that impressed me the most. I go, wait, there's something going on here, and I was watching all these, movies, and it's all Steven Spielberg movies. It's all like, all these imagination movies, and I just started to think like I was in a movie, and when you start to develop that, oh yeah, I have power, yeah, oh yeah, I can make money pop up, you have a different sense of reality, and your imagination starts to take place, just like any type of movie. You develop a template of life.
Yeah. And I think that if you do that early enough, it's probably like before you experience like failures or like annoying realities of just like the grind of being an adult. And that's powerful.
Yeah. So yeah, I think once I started understanding that concept, I would say my superpower is really one thing. It's being super curious. And the mind is so powerful. All you have to do is ask it a question, and it will find its answer. And I started just going through devouring, spending time in the last podcast, like really reading everything about literature, just understanding, because I used to collect popular mechanics, and it was just how things work.
Yeah. Like the
So
magazine, right?
yeah, so how does it work? I'll open up things, try to put it back together. But really, if you want to understand the whole idea of imagination, is like my simplified version. If you're just getting into this, and if you just want to, put up a business or just get better in life, you gotta understand we live in a universe of just pure energy. Frequencies, vibration, scales. System of energy, and your imagination is I would say, the programmer to what we call life. and life is a 3D reality, and it exports it out. And the way you can really, achieve your goals, whatever in life, is just understanding is what you really want in life, being super clear, and what scenes do you want to play in your head to be experienced. And I feel that was the most simplified way I can explain it to your listeners. So yeah, I mean, for me, and if your listeners want to do a business or some type of success in life, it starts with going to the end. Don't go to the beginning, go to the end. Like, how does the end look like first before you go to
Yeah.
the beginning?
Could you give me an
And
example?
people think, starting a business is what they want, but what people really want is, they want they want a vehicle that can keep them engaged in sometimes passion or earn money. But sometimes they think starting a business is the best way to make money, which isn't true. So what I used to do is let's just, go to the beginning, and it didn't work. I kept on failing and failing in things. So I made it very clear that I just wanted to be in a DJ booth all the time, a DJ booth, a crowd full of thousands of people.
Yeah.
I would write this down. Like, I just want to DJ for thousands of people and have fun and make a lot of money. Just be very
Right.
casual,
Right. Instead of
casual.
like Jon Herrera LLC
No.
productions, like you weren't trying to do that.
I wasn't trying to. I wasn't trying to effort it way like, oh man, I gotta put this step here and hustle and 10x and Gary V the shit out of it, and it's still not working.
You just saw the DJ booth. You saw that. You saw the amount of people. You just went there.
I would just like put together, oh yeah, this is what I'm gonna play at the set. This is my playlist. I was already in my head DJing.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, when you're having coffee and you just like space out, right? You're just smiling.
Yeah.
And girls are like, oh, what are you smiling? I'm like, oh, nothing. You just space out. So you got to go into that, like, you just got to get lost. And I would get lost a lot because, you're bored in school, you're bored in doing nothing. And I spend a lot of time alone. And that's the thing. When you spend a lot of time alone, you don't have friends to kind of distract you. Mm-hmm. So first thing you do is get a yellow pad and just, write things down. Like, I'm DJing for thousands of people, having fun. My family's there. My girl's there. I'm playing this. I'm just writing down, just having fun. So think of it as you're a script writer. You're the director. You're a producer. You're a script writer. And you can edit and revise any script you want based on there's no limitation. There's no limits.
Right.
So you can say, I'm now 5'10", I'm 6'5", and the imagination allows it. So, okay, that's cool. But, you're now in a space where you're experiencing emotions like, oh yeah, you just someone dropped a $10,000 check in your account, and it's like, what's the feelings around that? And you start to kind of experience that as you're writing the script.
Yeah.
So I always put it to myself, if I wanted to experience life and write a book or a biopic, what were the main scenes that, would make your life, kind of like interesting? So try to understand, like, what's your next scene? Where do you want to be? But in a state of you already have it. Because wanting, the word want, means that you don't have it.
Yeah.
So you got to make sure one of the things I learned, especially in, manifesting or building your dreams, is you got to know the words. What's the root word of the words? Because words, sometimes they can hold you back. So the state of wanting is not really to have it. It's just, I want her, but I can't have her. Yeah. So I always say, I have it. You have it. Yeah. It's done. And you go into that, you kind of claim that, kind of like, motherfucker, claim that shit.
Yeah.
Emotionally, intensity. When you claim that and your emotionally intensity, claim that shit, emotions, it's like shit's changing already. Because you just dropped like a seed. And the next thing you're just getting texts and calls. I'm like, what the fuck?
So I really can speak to that. And it's a hard one to talk about, right? Because it's like, if you're not in that headspace, it almost feels so foreign. Like, I really do have to kind of like walk away from stuff or go on a walk or like cleanse the BS of the day before I can get to that. Because sometimes it's just like there's a billion texts and emails and I'm like, I don't have time to dream. I'm like, whoa. Yeah. But then like when I walk away and when I start painting those pictures, like hearing your words of it, like I've kind of used different words in my head, but yeah, like I'll just kind of imagine these things, or like if there's like, I like to like set it in a very granular level, right? Like if I'm like all excited about a specific car, I like imagine myself opening the door handle, and I imagine what the steering wheel feels like, and like what the seats and like the door sill, and like I really like paint to that. Um and like then I again, like I like what you're saying of like you already have it, because if you start to just always imagine like, oh, I'm working towards it, or I want this so bad, then it like becomes this permanent want kind of thing. And it is surprising when you kind of like allow yourself or give yourself the permission to be at a level where you have it. Maybe it doesn't instantly appear, but maybe some of the people that align with that start aligning with you. And then you get that step closer, and then they kind of start showing you how these things, how you do get there. So I feel it. I feel it. And it's something that I'm very interested in talking about, because it's a little hard to, it almost sounds too good to be true, or it sounds like so lofty, but then there's something there. And
Yep.
another, like I wanted to further deep dive or pick your brain on, like, I think that we get a little too lost in the grind, because, and I was talking to you a little bit about this right before we started recording. It's like you start to like write your goals down and think about what you want, and then you get so focused in the Gary V hustle. And the hustle is fun, but it's also really easy to get burnt out. So like, can you tell me a little bit more about like balancing like why it matters, or like the fun of dreaming and like not getting lost? Like I guess it's like aligning a little more than just like grinding.
Yeah,
Am I
I
saying
think
that well enough to give you something?
I understand, like especially like people who are want to be like entrepreneurs,
Mm-hmm.
like they get bombarded. Especially there's the spiritual side, which is just like, oh, just meditate and you know life will happen. And there's the hustle motivational speakers is like, you gotta fucking kill it, you gotta do this, and you're trying to figure out, should I be like a monk or should I be like Tony Robbins?
Where's
And
the
that's
middle,
kind of my,
John? Where's the
I was
middle?
like, motherfucker, I have no time to have this. I need the fastest answer. And really, it's very simple. Your frequency goes where you go. If you think you can do it one day, it will show up. And if you can think you can do it in 1 month, it will show up. And that's kind of how frequencies work. Once you understand your belief system and understand that you can change your belief systems that were based off of memory. Just say memory because you had an experience in the past or you
Yeah.
watched it from like a movie. Once you know you can change that shit, you can now like quantum leap and skip all that hustle shit. Why I needed to go through that hustle shit is to learn is that, you know, there are many ways to skin a cat, they say, especially,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they say that. But, you know, there's many ways to go to Florida. You know, how many ways you can take, you know, a plane, you can walk there, you can bike there, you can take the bus, many ways. And
Yeah.
it's not wrong or right to not hustle and hustle. And sometimes what I realize is people actually can do the easier way, but the easier way is blocked by the person that's you, which is your ego, because you want to grind it. I got to show my self-worth. I got to do 12 hours before I make $1 million. And you create all these fucking definitions why you should do things before you actually could receive them. And that's when I realized after like maybe 38, 39, and I'm turning 40 this year, is that it's not about hustling. It's about conditioning yourself that when you receive something, the reason why it's not coming to you so fast, and this is kind of like in a spiritual and self-concept level, is that you think you don't deserve it, and usually you're blocking money, friends, because I seen this with myself is that the more you realize you deserve better, it shows up, and it shows up so fucking fast. And I think the part where people get it wrong is that you don't need to work on your goals. You got to work on the excuses that you give yourself that you don't deserve everything that you already have, you know? And that's kind of like where I see it like, nah, you don't need to work on like 10 hours and doing meetings. Just focus on like that bullshit energy that people carry, which is like
Yeah.
unworthiness, I'm not enough. And it's just, everyone goes through it. It's kind of like they say, in how the Jedi, he has to go through his bullshit. He learns the dark side. He finds a mentor. He learns a lesson, and he figures out, So it's called the hero's journey, and that's really this philosopher called Joseph Campbell, and that's really the story of any great story. And if you understand what's your journey is really like, why you? Why this life? So rather than complain about, why is it so hard? It's just like figure out how can I make this easier for us. And I realized through that when you only go through shit, you'll realize, shit is like manure. It just fucking grows you.
Well, dude, you said something that like really hit me where I was like, whoa, it's like you were saying, like, there's a lot of ways to go to Florida, right? Like currently I'm in California, you're in Manila. Like there's a lot of ways to get to Florida. You could hop on a tiny little sailboat. I could hop on a bicycle, or we could both hop on airplanes. And like, I just wonder if you look at that metaphor and if you look at like what you're doing in life, like maybe you're riding a bike to Florida and you don't realize that an airplane exists. And it's like, because we know, like, because that's such a simple analogy, no one wants to ride a bike across the country unless that's like you're trying to do a marathon. But like, that sounds ridiculous. Like when you say it like that, you're like, dude, get on a flight or drive a car or do not do that. But it's like when you think about your own life, legit, maybe you are riding a bike. Maybe you're in Zoom meeting after Zoom meeting or on this or that, or like spending all this time going somewhere the slowest possible way when there is an airplane that exists. And I think that kind of comes back to like that being playful and taking that time to imagine a little bit more than the current grind, because you're like, all right, like $1 million, like that's such an easy one. Everyone, oh, give me $1 million. It's like, all right, if that's the goal, like if you, instead of working a $20 an hour job all the time, being like, I'll get there one day, like if you take that time to just be like, all right, well, my favorite thing in the world is singing. Like, what if a company wanted to pay me $1 million to sing somewhere or something? Like just that, like that's crazy to think about, is maybe there's an airplane in every situation when you're riding a bike.
And I think that's the internal shift. People are like set up belief systems like, nah, that wouldn't happen to me. And that's where those programs, they've heard that, the bike is the only way. No, you got to hit this, you got to do that before you be successful. And those are the bicycles in your mind, which is called limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And it's not your fault, because maybe when you're younger, you pick up those limiting beliefs with your parents, your friends, programming, and it's subconscious. That's kind of like your first Windows version of life.
Yeah.
And it's still buggy. There's a new update, and what people don't realize, and this is something very key with even athletes, so entrepreneurs, you can reprogram it because the mind is reprogrammable in terms of stretching new beliefs and I would say potential.
Yeah.
Just like when the guy who rode, who hit the 1 minute mile, 7-minute mile, then everyone broke it right after. There was a mental block. It wasn't a physical block.
Whoa, yeah.
So those things right now is just about a mental concept of themselves that if no one's ever done it, then it surely can't be done. Then there are people like Elon Musk who says, motherfucker, we going to Mars.
Yeah.
So it's not really about manpower. If you look at everything, it's about who can excite the ideas now that have the best impact. And it's all about how can I be the most creative person, still be very financially successful and healthy, and create impact and help people. And that's how people are thinking today.
Yeah.
Unlike now, before, it's not like, there's very people who are very selfish, people aren't conscious of the environment. Now they're thinking about how can we help people and become successful together. And I think if you're thinking that way, that's where success, it runs to you faster.
Yeah. And like, again, getting on a practical level, because I know that certain times like these concepts can feel so far out there. It's so easy to be like, all right, I get it, that's cheesy, but it's like, no, like take some time, like play with this. So like anybody listening who's kind of on the fence or like being like, all right, fine, today I'm going for a walk and I'll just start
Yeah.
playing with this. Like on a practical level, how do you do it? Is it literally just as simple as like painting these pictures of where you want to be? Like how do you, Jon Herrera, do this when you go into that fun and imagination mode?
I think you got to see it's a great tool, but
Mm-hmm.
if you take it too seriously, that's where people use imagination and they spin off and they can go into fucking super worry, super
Mm-hmm.
create, scenarios in their head that never happen, or you create scenarios in your head that actually happen that are bad. So imagination is always working all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like off. So for me, I think is like work on your observing yourself the most first. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, figure out like why am I feeling this today and ask yourself, where is it coming from? Where is it coming from? Because if you don't have awareness of yourself, imagination will not take off because it's kind of like shooting yourself in the foot because it's like a Mustang, all this power, you just like go straight.
You just do the burnout and go to the wall.
And you get a freaking, it is boom.
Yeah.
There's no, what do you call that? You need some accuracy with this. So
Mm-hmm.
first, before you step into imagination, before imagination, you're just aware of yourself. Like, I'm aware and I'm in a room, I'm feeling good, it's kind of warm. People need to realize that they have some type of an awareness, and that starts there. And with imagination, I think when you go through a day and whether a day can be shitty or good, is that it's always working. So
Mm.
the process with imagination is when you're feeling your script or scene, you know, you're supposed to have fun, first of all.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And you're
Yeah.
supposed to have fun, you know. Number two is you're supposed to be unlimited. You're not supposed
Yeah.
to imagine the same problem and repeat it. It's just why is this still happening to me? Why is this still happening to me? But the thing is you're programming what you call is a loop, like a time loop.
Sure. So
So
like
if you're
move on. Like if you're caught up in a
like
problem,
no,
just
let's just drop that. And that's the
yeah.
problem is that people are in time loops still from high school because they don't know how to forgive shit that's holding them back. So if you're
Yeah.
still holding on to shit that's kind of like there and you're like, no man, I want to have that life, but that girl hurt me in fifth grade, you know?
Right. Or yeah, like what about like I guess the example of maybe like you're caught up in your bills or like you got in a fight with a close friend or a girlfriend
Correct.
or a boyfriend or something like that. Like, is it as simple as like, okay, like if you're doing something like this, I just move on. My bills are paid. I have a
Yeah.
great relationship and like,
Great.
and
Yeah.
then like kind of paint a little further than that.
Great. So like that's the thing. Like imagination is so powerful because you have two types of brains. There's a conscious brain and the subconscious. So let's just say that you've been trying all these things and you've been hustling and the bills are still coming. I'll show you this perspective. What I see is that you're hustling and you're re-impressing your brain
Mm-hmm.
that it's not there. Oh, it's still not there. It's still not there. I still need more money. And you're
Mm-hmm.
still feeling the vibe of it's not there.
Mm-hmm.
What you're supposed to do is change your imagination. It's already there. And a lot of people have a hard time transitioning out of that worry phase, that panic phase, to a new potential reality, which is like the desire, just because they see it, they think it's real. It's
Yeah.
like it says it. Like I know it's
Yeah.
there, but you created that already. So there's a next scene. But if you
Mm-hmm.
keep on reacting to the old shit, and the word reacting is a key, you need to learn how to respond to that. I got it. I know it. Tell a new story. But if you repeat that negative feeling, and that's where people don't understand that out hustling, tweeting if 5 people or calling more people is not the best way. Sometimes you need to just energetically go back to 0 point, chill the
Yeah.
fuck out,
Yeah.
have some
Yeah.
time, and just go back having fun. You have to kind of, it sounds very stupid, but it's the most intuitive thing you do because, if you know the laws of energy, it's like this: water seeks itself, low energy will seek its low energy, high energy will seek its high energy.
Yeah.
And like, if you're a frequency hitting that low energy, it will show more of that energy events. So
Mm-hmm.
that's how the universe connects. If you're feeling bad about money, you're going to start to believe it. There's like, forever. But if you
Hmm.
don't shift and say, okay, today I'm gonna have a different conversation with myself. I'm gonna feel good. Even if I see this, I'm gonna give some time to let myself realize and just have fun with it. Have fun
Yeah.
with it. Have fun
And I
with it.
think like to add to that with like your negative energy, like kind of seeks and aligns with negative, positive seeks and aligns with positive. Like I think about that and like a real example that I can think of is like, okay, maybe you're dead broke, but you love playing guitar or you love playing an instrument or making music, right? And what if there's somebody out there who is like at the freaking top? Like they are balling. Like they did it. They're the most successful X artist of whatever genre. You guys might still love the exact same music or the same
Yeah.
influences, right? So like if you're a guitar player, like maybe the whoever I'm going to get too stupid with this analogy, but like I'm saying like say you meet that person that's killing it,
Yeah.
you could so easily, if you had that positive energy and you had that love and
Yep.
excitement, if you met that person and you started talking about your influences and you came from a place of like loving it and you're like, dude, did you see the way they did this and the way that they sampled this and this and this? And that person, even though you're nothing of an artist, might be like, yo, yes, that's awesome. And then
Yeah.
instantly you're aligning with somebody who's massive.
Yeah.
Or, but if you're not in that excitement and if you don't come from that, if that person meets you and you're just a bummer, of course they're going to overlook you. But who knows,
Yeah.
that could have been a chance to do something huge. Or like a personal example that I feel of that, like we both know, like I'm a pretty big car nerd. So
Yeah.
like if I'm at like some random car meet or something like that, like there's no difference from me talking to any person at a car meet. And like, what if you love a car? If you're like, dude, the way that they did those wheels and this, that, and this,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that same person could be like, oh, that's crazy. This is my super fun Ferrari. Like, let me show you it. And then you align with a
Yeah.
new person that could show you something. So it's like, I think that that energy, I really can speak to that energy of like, you don't need to have some amount of money or be good enough or like have enough of a skill to align with some of the people or like to start being on a higher level. I think it does have to come from just like, you're not super serious and shitty when you're in these situations and you're having fun
Great.
with it. Was that too
Yeah.
tangenty or did that make sense?
I always say like, reason why like, people read energy first before they actually can speak words because they know if they vibe them or not. Like just the way you read people and how they play guitar or just the way he styles his car. Like, oh, I like the way just the way you just read it on an energetic level. You have
Yeah.
enough intuition, but you have the power to raise that. Some
Yeah.
people don't realize that they may have a shitty energy, but if you can put a higher frequency energy in the room, that will always empower everyone's energy.
Yeah.
That's just the law
Yeah.
of nature, and that's why music is one of the great ways to change moods.
Mhm.
Keys in music have certain melodic frequencies to create less stress.
Yeah.
Chakra system is connected to all these nervous systems, so everything is really on an energetic level. If I were to say, how do you master life? You master your mood. You master your conversation, what you tell yourself about. Because sometimes your conversation about yourself isn't good, is the
Mhm.
reason why you feel not so good. And it can be just like a loop. You just got to get out of that loop and that change that sample to a new loop, a new sample. And that's easy, but it's hard for people to accept a new, better self of themselves. And you may say like, no, they really want it, but they have to practice it. They really gotta
Yeah.
train for it.
So, okay, so could you then tell me some of your favorite moments of practicing and it aligning or like what are some greatest hits of John dreaming big, having fun with it and the universe delivering?
No, it was really funny. When I was reading that Jack Canfield book and I was just practicing it, I was doing a brand called True Youth before.
Mhm.
One of my first brands. That's where I met Steve at the trade shows. And literally, I was like, it'd be really cool to have Chris Brown wearing a shirt. Chris Brown just started his first single, Run It, or like, Yo, excuse me. He was 16 years old. I was like,
Wow.
I want to have my shirt on him.
Yeah.
And, I just felt it. I didn't, write it down because I was traveling. I was just feeling it. I was like thinking of a music video. He's like dancing to it. Just giving myself good feelings and do not get caught up in the minutia of like the technique. Just get lost in it. And I
Yeah.
think people realize you need to get lost in it, where when you close your eyes, you just need to lock into that energy. Like, wouldn't it be funny? Wouldn't it be amazing? Say things to inquire the mind for emotional, impression, and just like have fun.
Yeah.
I did that. I did that for 2 weeks. So somehow I met a couple at a party, and they were in the Philippines. And the guy worked for Bad Boy. He used to be the marketing guy, head for Mark. He used to be run with Bad Boy with Sean Combs, and the stylist, his best friend, is Chris Brown's stylist. And it's like, yo, I got a brand. I got a brand. This is what I do. He goes, John, send it to me. I got it on US Weekly or US People magazine, 2008 or 7. It was shown in the magazine. So, a lot of these things, if you experience, you don't know the laws, but like you see other brands and hustlers trying to make it, trying to do something by using effort, by using hard work. I use my imagination because in the world of energy, you can hyperspeed the success if you experience it first in your mind and in your like emotionally, then it shows up. That's how it works.
Yeah.
So it's not like the physical, then the emotional. It's the emotional meets the physical. And I'm like, so that I got it. So that was one, it's like, okay. And, I think yeah, one of the things that I wanted to do is meet one of the guys in Hook. His name's Dante Rufio.
Oh, cool.
So like, I watch all these movies. He's like one of my idols. He's a Filipino actor. Then literally, I was in LA, California. I was, just dating my wife, and my sister invites us over, and like I meet Dante, and he's like, he's right there. It's like, oh, cool. And now we're like super close and super friends.
No
It's
way.
like people who I idolize, not as an idol, like you're better than me.
Mm-hmm.
I always like trying to say like, I don't want to be a fan. I want to be a partner. I want to be a friend. And I end up being friends with them. And those are how I build a relationship already in my mind. It's not like I'm a fan or I'm a fan. Because if you build a fan, you're going to get a fan relationship. But if you build like, he goes to my daughter's, he was at my, goddaughter's wedding or like whatever, like you're considered family.
Yeah.
So there's so many instances where I've just done it really fast. Like all the brands, I just, picture myself just messaging them, and I would see like, Bobby Hundreds' Twitter before, and I just pretend I'm messaging them, and all of a sudden we meet, we connect, all these things. So you got to kind of role play and not be, sometimes you think you have to do action. I got to stay in front of, people and just wait 5 hours to meet a guy. No, you just got to put in your mind, use your imagination, because the resources are there emotionally.
Yeah.
People like, no, but you can't. They're gonna use logic to counteract like what I'm saying. But if you trust it and practice it, and you give yourself enough time to believe that imagination really creates everything, because everything really comes from imagination. And if you think about it, it comes from you. But where are those thoughts coming from? It's somewhere. So you're the one who can control the things that you feel, especially if you feel better, you get things faster. If you feel not so good, then shit's slow. That's what I realized.
No, totally. And I love that. And another piece of that I could potentially add, but like elaborate a little bit, is I know a lot of times after kind of like that imagination round and all that, a big thing that is said is write it down. So you were saying like before you would imagine writing it down, but like, can you speak to that? Like, is that equally as important to you?
Writing down is just more of a training method for people who like to use like, the phones, but the writing down activates more muscles because it impresses memory. So the idea is goals is to really not to remember it, because you don't remember anything because you remember it. The biggest memories in your life are not based on memory. It's based on feeling. Like, your first kiss, your first burger, your first heartbreak, it's all memory based. Yeah. So writing it down and impressing it gives you better, I would say, long-term memory impression. It's just like, let's just say it's like a muffler. It boosts it, it gives it more, it's like a turbo. So writing it down
resonate.
Gives you visual.
Yeah.
and it gives you some type of muscular training. So you're using your eyes and you're using your muscles and you're using your mind. Unlike in a an iPhone, you're using little muscles and you're not using your visual.
Yeah.
There's no emotional. So that's why people got to go old school and
Yeah.
write that down, go into it, read it, review it, read it, review it. It's like you're just looping that same script, and you
Yeah.
don't even have to write it. And if you look at like a lot of successful people's notebook, it's the same thing. Like, why do you keep on writing the same thing over and over? And it's like, then the thing you notice, like, why did you stop writing it? Oh, it came true already. And
Wow.
I'd look at that, and I have all these notebooks there. It's all
Oh,
there.
what?
I would literally like, and if I looked at my notebook, I'd say my notebook was not really. It was more of like my genie. It was like I was like rubbing it. That was
Yeah.
the genie.
Yeah.
So when I realized I was looking at the pattern, and you got to study your patterns in data because I realized I was just writing the things over and over, and when I showed up, it would show up in my journal. Oh, just got this, but I made a new list. So
Hmm.
I'm constantly making lists. So I would say, be a crazy list builder
Hmm.
and just build list things that not what you want, just but you're afraid of, but just write it down anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and like I've been practicing that more so and more so, and it's like it's crazy because you write it down and it's almost like scary to write down at first. You're like, there's no way I couldn't. And then
Yeah,
you
yeah,
write it and it's like, oh, you're like, well, it's just on paper. Like I can write
yeah,
it, I
yeah,
can think about it. And then you will, like, I'll go back to certain old notebooks and I'll look at goals where I was like, at that time, I was like, how am I ever going to do this? And now I look and I'm like, I've doubled that. Like,
yeah.
what? Like, so it is crazy and it's cool. Like, I also love writing stuff down because it then becomes the archive and it becomes like, later you can go back and be like, holy shit, I did it. And it hits different when you remember when you wrote it. So that's cool. And I guess this could actually be a perfect segue. I did want to touch a little bit on listener questions because I had tweeted about that. I think I had posted on Instagram after your first episode had done well, and we were talking. It was like, yeah, maybe we come back, maybe we answer some questions, and I really wanted to talk about
For sure.
exactly what we just talked about. But we had one other question that kind of like aligns with that pretty well, which is how do you specifically write your goals and your to-do lists? So again, you covered quite a lot of that, but like this week, like how much are you writing down? How does your to-do list work? Like what is it a feeling? Is it a specific, I need to call this person? Like what's that look like specifically on the most granular level that you can explain?
I think usually you already have a framework of like what your life should be. So I always say reverse engineer, and that kind of like means start with the end. Like how do I want to my day end and go backward.
Mhm.
And you don't need to kind of like, worry about if it's gonna happen or not. You just gotta feel like, oh, I want to receive a consulting offer tomorrow. And it's like a menu. I want to create
Mm.
my menu freestyle. I want to receive some Bitcoin. I don't know how, but I wonder how that feels. So have a conversation with yourself, but not just being commanding like Bitcoin. Have a conversation with like, how would it feel if I got Bitcoin in my wallet today? And you start to ask questions to yourself, or what would that look like, and where would that come from? So you're creating the story. Should it come from my friend or my cousin? And you can actually fill in the story and just play with it just to see if this really works,
Mhm.
because sometimes people don't get specific, and sometimes like when they say, oh, I was just thinking about you, you just called, and it's because like you kind of like manifested that too. So
Yeah.
make sure when you're in your goals list, give enough details to say, man, that's too much of a coincidence. So because sometimes you will try to deny it. You're trying to like, nah, man, that's crazy. Like sometimes you need to make things so specific that your jaws will drop. You're like,
Yeah.
it's like, if it works for everything, what the hell? And
Damn.
once you kind of have that epiphany, you're like, what else works? Because that's kind
Yo.
of like what I've been really experiencing. Because once it becomes the real to you, it's like a game. I think we had a concept. What's the point of a game? It's really to simulate an experience, right? How it feels to kill a boss, get into different levels, shoot a gun, and like let's think of life as a game. What's the point of life? To simulate experiences. And what's the remote control? Thoughts and emotions. And that's the only way you can really understand that. And if you don't record it like you did, it's like your data keeper. Like all these days, I did 2 weeks of just reviewing this car, just like feeling this freaking nice car out. And next thing you know, like someone calls me, hey, can you do a shoot for this car? And they're like, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And you're like, it's not so hard. The problem is, if you believe it's hard, you will develop a scenario where everything is hard. That's why you have to have a first belief that there is there is a law that connects you to everything. You got to understand you affect that. Two is you need to know about like what your observation is. Is it about like judging somebody, getting pissed off somebody? Sometimes you're like trying to be in a good mood, but you're thinking about that bill. So observe why you feel that, and when you're staying to that, you're kind of like you're vibrating. It's like hitting another bell. Like don't go to that bell. Don't ever go to that bell. Stay on this lane.
Yeah.
So that's what I've learned for the past 39 years, in perfecting it. So yeah, really, really go, I would say, over the top with it. People are they're not selfish enough. And they're like, no, I only want $20. I'm like, fucking get $200. Like,
yeah.
expand yourself, build your courage. Like talk to that girl in your mind before you talk to her in person. Yeah. And people do that and they realize, man, she talked to me. Oh man, they texted me. Yeah. They go, you only did one thing. You imagined it and you hit it with energy and it snapped into reality. That's it.
Also, like, can't you speak to that personally yourself? Like, have you ever seen that person in a room that just has so much good energy where like you're just attracted to them? You're just like, what's this person all about? Like, what is that? Like, if you become that person, it's like, I don't know. Like, that's just, it's so interesting, right? Like people are attracted to that good energy and you can do it. You can have it.
Natural people want it. They just don't know how to activate it. Yeah. That's why they go to like comedy clubs to laugh. And there's people who want some happiness. They just want to be around that type of light or that kind of love. And some people are just naturally, like moms are like that. Sometimes, aunts or someone like they bring that love and they don't judge you. And that's a thing that you feel so safe, the word safe. Yeah. So yeah, definitely there are people who just light up the room. And the idea of life is how do I get there? Yeah. How do I get there and how can I stay there? Yeah. Because things just happen so fast if you can just master that. And that's it. And I feel like everything, whether it's a car, Porsche, or anything, it just shows up. Yeah. Doesn't matter. So really about, goals is like, what do you want? And what are you doing to feel it every day? Because if you feel it, you make it real. When you call it out, like, oh, like he's going to hit a home run or he's going to, hit the three. You call it out. You're like, you don't even need to look at it. It's good. And you develop kind of like that swagger, manifesting swag. And it just started becoming more of like, man, the speed of things moving so fast, it becomes normal. It becomes your new upgrade. It becomes like your new set, like your upgrade kit is like, boom. Yeah. So you're now living on a different type of belief systems where things are moving so fast and, there's no really, I would say, issues because you designed that as your vision, Yeah. Because if you design your vision with limiting beliefs that like, oh, how am I going to, sometimes people fuck up their vision because they're like trying to figure out the how's that going to happen? Like their logic can't fuck with imagination, but imagination, again, you're the master programmer and you got to use your cheat codes and don't feel guilty about it. Yeah. And I think that's something in the context of the club is I just wanted to have fun because people said, I used to see people in my college go to jobs and not have fun and they grow very, very old and they're like balding.
Dude, yeah. You see them stress miles on
like,
people,
I see them,
right?
I'm like, I'm wearing here like a cap. I look like I'm 19. And
dude,
like,
straight up. I met a dude last week that said, I think maybe he just turned 40. I dead ass thought this motherfucker was 60 when I met him. Yeah. I was talking to him and I was like, oh, this old soul, like I'm sure he's got a lot of wisdom to him. And he's like, yeah, I'm 40 now. And I was like, oh no.
Yeah, it does that to you. And I said, I will never do that. I'm going to be like I want to be like that guy in Big, Big, just like have fun, have cool
Yeah.
stuff and toys,
Yeah.
just like that. Because I never want, like, everyone has that Peter Pan syndrome, but I just wanted to stay youthful,
Mm-hmm.
young, and relevant, and
Mm-hmm.
be around music. And it just, the script just folded into, the people I met.
Yeah.
And people might think, oh, you just got lucky. Nah, I practice and rehearse that every night in my
Yeah.
dreams.
Yeah.
And that's the best time to do it. The science behind why you gotta do this before you sleep, because when you're in that half sleepy mode and you're in that feeling of like it's happening,
Mm-hmm.
your mind gets more marinated to
Mm-hmm.
that last feeling. So when you want to go to sleep, don't think about problems, because that shit will happen.
Yeah.
Think about the things that the problem is solved already. Like the problem is solved. If your problem is solved, what is the feeling today? What is the
Yeah.
waking up feeling? Motherfucker, yes.
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
so you got, sometimes people say like different contexts, they're saying they're praying or they're doing some meditation, but at the end of the day, you just gotta get off the problem. Just
Yeah.
let's focus, move, skip the forward to the next scene.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
to the end. Go to the
Dude.
fucking end credits.
I was gonna say the episode. I've decided that the episode title of this is "The Power of Imagination."
Yeah,
As you were saying, I
good.
was like, "There it is. That's the title."
Yeah. And people
Um,
like, you can't effort your problem solving. You gotta think like, all right, what would this feel like if it were solved? Let's just go into feeling. Let's just try to figure out what would be the conversation. Listen to it, hear it, feel it, play with it, but don't sit on the problem by
yeah,
just looking at the problem and say, motherfucker, there's a problem here, there's a problem here, there's a problem here.
yeah,
And that's what
yeah,
people do. And what happens if you do that so long, you'll never see a solution because you're so locked in, like there's a problem.
yeah, yeah,
And you gotta snap out of it. And once you're out of that spell and you're now aware that I'm never gonna go into that loop,
mm-hmm.
you're kind of on like next God level.
Yeah. Something that has been like really helpful for me, and I don't even know how or why this one example hits so hard, but I've kind of applied it to everything in my life since then. But I remember in my early days of touring, we were touring in a van with a trailer, and we had in the same day, it was during winter, and we had a trailer tire like wheel blow out, and we had a fuel pump die. And we were stranded in the middle of some very, very cold state like Minnesota or something. And I was just like, well, like, and I was the tour manager, so I had to figure it out. And I'm like, well, this isn't going to be forever. Like I'm not going to be stuck in Minnesota with a blown out fuel pump and tire forever. Like something will happen and we will get past this. And for some reason, that feeling, that analogy has stuck with me for my entire life past then. Like in 2019, when I broke my leg, it was so miserable and it was the worst experience. And I was so down and out. And I was like, my leg's not going to be broken forever. Like this sucks right now, but it's not going to be forever. And when you, at least for myself, like when I like really think about that, it's so reassuring and it's so cool to be like, yeah, cool, there is a current problem, but that's not going to be forever.
Yeah,
and then you can kind of move past it.
Yeah, people can't get out of that and we call that in coaching, step back and just see what's the perspective here and how do you make this reframe? Like, why is this a good thing? What's the benefit of this?
Yeah.
And why is it not a problem? Because some people think problems are problems. I'm like, nah, man. Well, there's a problem exists. There's a solution that exists. So the problem was to really learn about the solution and figure out there's a solution to everything.
Mm-hmm.
People just don't want to imagine the solution because they're so focused on the problem.
Yeah. It's crazy. I mean, we spent an hour talking about such a fundamentally simple concept, but that's kind of exactly what I wanted to do. Like, I know that this sounds out there to a degree, but I really just wanted to talk about exactly this with you because I think that it gets so overlooked in this like very grindy work super hard. Cause I agree, like you do have to work, you have to put in the hours to make your things happen. But I think that this part gets overlooked. And I think that I overlooked it in the last episode when you were on and I was like, nah, this man needs to come explain himself more and talk about just this. Cause I think it is that important.
Yeah, I think the reason why I said, you know what, I want to give you the best, answers, especially like, your listeners are musicians, writers,
Creatives,
creators, dreamers, and they're like, they just want to dream, and they want their dream to happen. And one of the things is just kind of like I always say the analogy is you're pushing the gas, but you got the emergency brakes on. So
Mm,
sometimes you just got to take off the emergency brakes and get out of the way and start feeling the solution, feeling good about things, and uh, talk to yourself like it's done already. And I always talk to myself like it's done. Like, John, what are you eating for dinner when that happens? So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna probably eat like a steak. And you're already putting yourself in a perspective. It's done. It's past it. Like
mhm.
10 years after, what are you doing? Well, I'm living here now. So you're setting yourself up for, new scenes. And, with writers and creatives, you're naturally there.
Yeah.
What you got to build is the courage and the consistency to stay in that lane, to
Wow.
stay in that lane. Yeah, you got to stay there. Because if you go into creative negative mode, you're going to tell a negative story. But you need to stay in your creative, positive mode. And especially rappers and writers, if you say that word, it will manifest. And
Mhm.
that's something you see with rappers who say
Mhm.
things and it comes up, and like, Biggie and Pac, that wasn't in music, but it manifested, right? So be careful of the power of the tongue, and it's in the Bible too. So, you want to make sure a lot of things that come out of your mouth, you either aware of its effect or
Yeah.
don't say that at all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's like it's really, really interesting. And I don't know. I wanted to talk about this more because I think that it's so easy to overlook or to be like, no, there's more to it or whatever. And I think we could be flying planes when we're riding bikes when we really stop and think about it. So
Yeah,
that is huge. Um, I mean, I think that we pretty much hit our mark on
yeah,
time. Did we
man.
miss like any crucial concepts here? Did I?
I think I want you guys to, like, maybe if you guys want to start. What inspired me to understand about this is, YouTube, a guy named Wayne Dyer,
Mhm.
and the topic or the title is called "Wishes Fulfilled," and it'll talk about the science, spiritual level, and his story. So that was the book that kind of made me realize, like, I spent like 8 years just trying to understand what the science is, what the physics is, what's the quantum physics and metaphysics,
Yeah.
and how does that affect reality and goals. Because everyone is on this planet just to experience one thing. It's like bliss, your dreams, but why aren't they experiencing it?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
for me, it's just, how do I just wake them up and say, hey, it's possible. you're
Yeah.
just not using you're just not using it correctly.
No, that's
And
that's great. That's a great recommend. And send it to me afterwards because
yeah,
one, I personally want to see it. I think you had told
yeah,
me
yeah,
about
so
it. So send
you
me
did.
that and then I'll link it in the show notes and on the YouTube and everything so
Yeah,
people can find it real
yeah, man.
quick.
So yeah, hopefully you got clarity, and it's all about clarity.
Dude, no, this was really, really cool. And thank you for coming back. And obviously we
Oh
can pop
man,
back on anytime if listeners have more questions and all of that.
yeah,
Um,
I want to definitely connect with you with some of your guests. But on another note, yeah, those are dope. You have some dope people, man.
Dude,
So
yeah. Well, I mean, I think everybody kind of like aligns with some of this, right? Like you said it, like we are worlds apart and we are many miles apart right now,
yeah,
but the guests that I've had on all kind of have a similar parallel or everybody, like it's that energy, I think. So, yeah,
yeah,
it's
I like
cool.
listening to writers, especially because that's my thing now. Like, writing is a big thing for me. But yeah, man, congrats, and keep up the great work.
Dude, thank you so so much for joining as well. It's I love it. I love having you on. And also for a listener, I feel like maybe I should say like if this is a very fun, exciting thing, and there's a lot of like great vibes here, and I hope that we didn't sound too deadpan on this. Like these are massively huge to us, but because of the time gap, I woke up at 5:30 in the morning to do this, and John is up very late at night after a day of working. So the
Oh man, it's
Manila
good.
to LA gap. So I hope that we don't sound too dead. This is very important to both of us. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I figure I'll put a preface
No, it's good,
there.
man. It's a good. It's a good talk.